right, welcome to Chasing Rings. It's been a minute. What's up, fellas?
Hey,
Hey, what's
gentlemen.
going on?
What's up? What's up? So you know how we got to start off with our wait what. All right. So got a good one for you, and I hope I didn't steal yours, G, because this is about your boys.
I bet you did.
Oh, I hope it's not. You know what? I'm gonna let you go first, then, since it's your boys. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go something I didn't know, and this is definitely one of my favorite uh, WWE wrestlers.
Okay. I almost took that one. Go ahead. It's not the
Okay,
same one.
I don't know why I did not know this, but the Panthers took him in the expansion draft in '95. I think it's '95. But he had torn his abdomen on his pelvis. And so not only was he drafted in that expansion draft, but he was the first person the Panthers ever cut.
So tell us who it is, G, because I know, but Big
Bill
Dude doesn't know.
Goldberg.
Wait,
Oh,
what?
Goldberg,
Wait,
yes.
what?
Ah!
Yeah, I saw that one, and I almost did that one, G.
So yeah, I'm like, I had to do that one because as much as me and my brother, I mean, he was definitely one of our favorite characters. Goldberg was.
hmm He was definitely a character. What you got
Yeah,
tonight,
man.
Big Dude?
in the late 60s, HBCU probably had about 10% of the players in the league. Some of the people we know of are big folks. Then there's also people that also may know that in the Hall of Fame, that 10% of the NFL Hall of Famers are from HBCUs. Did you know in the last three drafts, 2023, 2024, and 2025, there have only been two HBCU alums drafted in the NFL drafts, with zero in 2024.
Wow.
Wait, what? Howard, that doesn't even seem like it's possible given the long history of draftees coming out of historically black colleges and universities. That's really odd.
Very odd.
Even though Too Tall Jones was the first round pick in 1974, you thought it was going to go further, and you can't count Travis and you can't count Shador because they didn't finish
Right.
Jackson State.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You can't count them. All right. So here's the other one I had. Gee, this is a more unpleasant one about your. It's good and it's
I know what
unpleasant.
you get ready to say. Say it. I
So
already
did
know.
you guys know that the Carolina Panthers have never had back-to-back winning seasons? Wait, what?
What? Wait a
That
minute.
wasn't the one I was thinking, but okay, that's still not.
And it gets even better. It gets even better, though. They managed to win 3 division championships in a row. So let that sink in. They never had a back-to-back winning season, but they won 3 division championships in a row.
Oh, we understand a little bit of it. I mean, they won the division and they were 8-9, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in 2013, they were 12-4. 2014, they were actually 7-8-1 and won the division. In 2015, they were 15-1. Of course, that was the Cam Newton Super Bowl team.
Hey, Cam didn't
I
get too.
just tell you,
Wow,
man, the NFC South is just.
Yes,
That's
craziness.
all I can do is just shake my head at times.
Craziness, man.
I'm not going to crack on the NFC least at all anymore over that one.
Yeah, right.
The NFC least.
All right. Let's hop into some news. So Miami, Ohio, which we spoke about them on the last show, G, and we had our argument for why they should be in the NCAA tournament, but these jokers straight up nutted up last night in the first round of their tournament. So they are now 31-1, living on the edge, waiting for Selection Sunday. And I got a feeling they're going to be left out. UMass.
What?
Wow.
UMass.
Wow. That's
How
another
bad
one.
was it?
I think it was 3 or 4 points. It was a close game. Out of there. One and done, man.
Yeah, but you know what? You still might be able to make an argument for him.
I still think they should be
Have
in.
a bad game.
I still think they should be in myself. You don't win 30 games in a basketball season and definitely don't go undefeated right up until your conference tournament, which, there's been much debate over the conference tournaments and whether the regular season champ should be good, even though they still have to play the conference tournament. I could see where, I don't know, I feel like it diminishes the smaller leagues again, because you guys remember back in the day when they started the automatic bid from the conferences and from the conference tournament championships, that there was a few years where the conference champion had significantly winning records, and they somehow some under 500 team or 500 team won their tournament, and that's who got the bid. They didn't even because they were not given two bids out of those conferences. If you weren't a major, you were not getting two bids. So
man,
this will be interesting because go ahead, Chi.
No, go ahead. I was clearing my throat.
This will be interesting because we were talking on the last episode about the West Coast Conference that will have Santa Clara, Gonzaga, and St. Mary's. It'll be the first time that conference gets three teams. And I have a feeling that Miami, Ohio is going to be on the outside looking in, unfortunately.
Yeah, that doesn't seem good.
Man, I have mixed thoughts about the conference championship. But then there's always this part of me, it's this nagging thing, that a lot of times, however you're playing at the end of the season is a window in how you would probably play in the immediate future, a la, March Madness. So there's a part of me can truly understand why the conference would carry that championship would carry that much weight. But I don't know, unless you can go back and look at Miami of Ohio, and if they've been like a bunch of close games that they should have won, then yeah. But if they still been playing the way they had been playing, because after you first mentioned them, I kind of went back a little bit and looked at them, and I'm like, so if they're gonna play the way they've been playing up to the time we had that conversation, then they should be in. So I think it's all about how they're playing.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think that they're definitely in trouble. Now, I think if they had gone some ways in their tournament, they probably would have been fine, but to lose in the first round, ouch.
Yeah.
And that had to be a super low seed. If they were the number one seed, I don't know how many teams are in their conference, but that had to be a really low seed that they lost to. So stay tuned for that. Typically, we would get into some more news at this point, talk a little free agency, but G unfortunately has to leave us early. So we want to jump right into the NFC South draft analysis, because I do want to have a chance for him to talk about his Carolina Panthers. We couldn't do the NFC South and cover the Panthers without their fan, their number one fan, giving us his outlook on that. So just real quickly, a synopsis of their season: another division championship under 500, 8-9.
Thank you, Atlanta.
Yeah, right. It was another underwhelming season for the Panthers, but they, like I said, they won the division. They almost got close to advancing to the divisional round, which is crazy when you think about the record. They played the Rams toe-to-toe after having beaten them in the first game this season. So definitely something to be optimistic about. I think Bryce Young had some flashes this year. I was starting to get up on my boy from Bama, but I think he might be okay. The defense definitely overachieved relative to expectations. I think they hung in there pretty well. I think they were sometimes the victim of the offense not being able to have sustainable drives that stretches throughout the season. But in the end, they took advantage of what the division gave them. They got some help from inside the division, and they end up winning the division. I think if they can develop some consistency, I think it could be a team to look out for, certainly. But I think that they might be on the verge of being a consistent contender. We'll see. Offensively, their rankings were really low. Rushing was the highest at 19th. Defense was really low against rushing. They were 29th in sacks, 28th in forced fumbles, so the defense really wasn't causing any turnovers or getting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks to be able to get to them. But there's a little bit of work to do there, but I think they have some pieces. They're young, which, a young team you can always build around. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, and I'm going to, pop up some information about the Panthers. I'm going to turn over to you to get started so you can get out of here. What do your boys need to do, man, to get back and defend their throne and get back into the playoffs and actually make some progress?
Yeah, to be fair, we lost, I want to say it was maybe 2 games during the regular season that we really should have won.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what had us on pins and needles, hope, with the, needing Atlanta to lose and so on and so forth. So, like you said, they're on the cusp. If I'm being objective, I think they're definitely on the cusp. They went out in free agency. I think they shored up the line a little bit with a center and a left tackle. So I thought that was good. They had Jalen Phillips on the edge. So that's going to help, a lot with our pass rush. Something you said is really important is that it's a pretty young team right now in a lot of ways. And I think that can be a positive the way they've been playing. And they just added Coker at wide receiver. And and I went back and looked at, I think he's a cat out of Holy Cross, but he's been improving, each year. So, I love seeing that. And so he gets down there in Carolina, and and Bryce has some time, he might be able to get it to him because he's actually a really good route runner. So what I'm thinking that it seems like they're really trying to get like the front line, their offensive line straight, like they're really trying to get the pressure game on the quarterback, trying to get that straight. So I wouldn't be surprised if they really focus. I think they still need a big play receiver. Rico Dowdle is gone, so we definitely need to shore up our running back core. So I can really see, obviously, they'll probably still be working, obviously, the free agent market, but we need a big play wide receiver, something that's going to make those safeties and those cornerbacks think twice. We definitely need that safety. I mean, we were allowing at least, where were we, 15 and giving up points. So, that's mid. So that can't be doing that. And so focus, getting that safety. They locked up cornerback, but getting that safety, well, those safety is going to be really, really important. And finally, I do want to go back to Rico Dowdle. Running back is something that I really believe Bryce will need because he's small himself and he needs to be able to get that ball out quick. So he needs running backs who can both block, but who can also, catch it out in the flat and get some good yards after catch. And we really need 2 of them because you all know how running backs can go down. So I can honestly see focusing on running back safety and wide receiver in the draft.
Any particular players in mind that you think your boy should IG?
Anybody from Ohio State.
Yeah, of course you.
But the reality is,
that.
I can't really say that right now. Ask me that question when it's time when we really get close to the draft. Free agency is kind of solidified. Then I'll definitely have an answer.
Okay. Big dude, what's your take on the Panthers as they get prepared for the draft and navigate free agency?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm right along with G with all their needs. A number of things that they got. I mean, I will say that I was a bit surprised. I didn't think they would go that high for Jalen Phillips, and I understand why they did. I think the other thing that's going to be there for them to make Jalen Phillips, and they don't have it as a need, but they really need to look at what they're doing with their interior D-line to make sure Jalen Phillips is free to do what he needs to do, because the only thing I say is, G, is we'll find out how good Jalen Phillips is without Carter next to him. Without a guy like Jalen Carter next to him, and he already was playing good in Miami, and he was doing well. He affects the game in so many different ways, and I think maybe that's what Carolina needs. Now, what I like was, and if I got this wrong, I apologize. I think I got it right. Devin Lloyd coming on from Jacksonville.
Yeah, the
You know,
linebacker. Yep.
there's a guy I think that you were missing. When you say linebacker, you have somebody that's a sideline to sideline linebacker, can cover the fields, can make plays. I mean, what linebackers? I don't know of any. They got 5 interceptions last year. 5 picks and 1 for a 99-yard return for a touchdown. So
Yeah, nuts.
I think those big plays, the big play people that Carolina got is going to be important. And like you said, I think they need to still scrape not just the draft, but still needs to see how everything falls, like you said, for a strong running back. And I did see, I can't remember the gentleman's name. I think I have his name. There was a retirement also on your offensive line. Yash Nijman announced his retirement. They wanted him to number 77. He wanted to come back, and I guess they said, well, we're going to make you a free agent. And I guess he wanted a chance to talk about it. They said, we're not going to. So I think he's about 30 years old. He retired as one of the people that play tackle, left tackle mostly. So because they did sign who they had to sign, they have folks they need to Stone Forsythe, that's his name. They got Stone Forsythe, who is a very solid player. So I would say Carolina, try to do the best they can in the draft. I think that first pick should be a wideout for Carolina because they filled in a lot of the other gaps. Wideout, lineman, and maybe some more excitement at tight end. Bring in another tight end that's quasi blocking and a person that also can split the field a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you, big dude. I think they should go wide receiver with this first pick. I originally had them trying to shore up that old line and looking at the defense, but where they're picking, and again, I've been pretty consistent with my thoughts on the O-line depth. I don't like what's available for them at that pick, at that 19th pick O-line. So I'd rather them try to fill that in free agency or try to maybe pick up someone late that is maybe a sleeper opportunity there. They obviously filled their edge in their linebacker with Phillips and Lloyd, so that's good that they took care of that. I was looking at the safety position, but their defense, for the most part, they were middle of the pack in terms of their rankings. They were 16th in total defense, 15th against passing, and their rushing defense was really starting to get a little bit low. They were 20th in sacks. I mentioned that they were 29th and forced fumbles, 28th. So I'm thinking that Phillips and Lloyd will help pick up some of the slack with that. They should see some improvement in their rushing defense, and certainly they should be able to put some more pressure on the quarterback. So really, before they've really even gotten started, they've filled 2 really big needs. And I know they had $27.9 million available in cap space, so they're not doing bad there. They can certainly still probably convert some positions and make some more room, some more cap room there. But I think it's great that they still have that much left after signing Lloyd and Phillips. So I like them picking a wide receiver. I actually have them in a little bit of a wrinkle here because I think Kenyon Sadiq, while he's listed as a tight end, if he's there and they need a wide receiver, I'm picking him. And I think they should pick him if he's there. Just because he has wide receiver abilities. Again, going back to his combine performance, the dude, he looked more like a wide receiver on film to me. His athleticism, his playmaking, yak, everything about him spells that he could easily be a wide receiver. And I was looking at their depth chart and I was thinking they already have a good tight end with Jatavian Sanders. And maybe, I don't know what their offensive scheme is. G, you might be able to inform us there, but they certainly could go 2 tight ends where Sadiq is really perhaps a third receiver, depending on the formations that they're running and the types of plays that they're calling. So I would take a chance on Sadiq if he's available, just because I like his athleticism and his playmaking, even though he's classified as a tight end. If they can't get him, I would then maybe look at the offensive line, but I really think they should focus on a wide receiver because they're dreadful on offense, especially the passing game. They've ranked 26th. And with their quarterback, hopefully they can replace Rico Dowdle. their offense, I think, was good last year, and they were able to hang in with teams that I didn't expect them to, scoring wise and moving the ball. Again, to be able to play toe to toe with the Rams twice tells you a lot about their capacity to move the ball. So I really think just that outside weapon could be a game changer for them. But if for some reason they can't get that, our guy from Alabama should be available, Caden Proctor. If he's not, there's a couple other people. You can go with the big guy from Utah. What's his name again? Caleb Lomu should be available. But I think Caden Proctor would be there. So I'd be comfortable if they got Caden Proctor or Kenyon Sadiq. And then whatever other wide receivers there, if they don't want to do the tight end wide receiver thing, that's kind of just being creative on my end. I just like the Sadiq kid so much. I think I would take a chance. If you need a pass catcher, to me, there's not a big distinction between what he's listed at and his ability to play wide receiver. So that's my thoughts on Carolina. But I really think that you got your division, I think, is going to be better next year based on the moves that teams have made thus far. I think every one of those teams, I don't expect next year the champion to be under 500. I don't think we'll have another year of that.
I was looking at the moves New Orleans made, and I was like, dang.
Yep. Yeah, I think they made some moves and they had
like they are on it.
And they got better at the end of the year. They were another team that got hot at the end of the year too. So we'll keep our eyes on that. It's definitely gonna be a more competitive division. Okay. All right. So let's talk about free agency a little bit then. What do you guys think about these moves that have been made, especially the Max Crosby situation where the trade basically got nixed? And big dude, like you said in our group text, everyone knew that Max Crosby was coming off an injury. He had surgery. There was no way he was recovered from the surgery. So he wasn't going to pass a physical, in that regard. What do you think really was going on there? I mean, it looks real shiesty on the Ravens' part.
Yeah, I mean, it does look shiesty because, first of all, Crosby was shut down at the end of the year after the Eagles game last year, and there were still some games left. He was shut down, and understandably so, because they didn't think it was worth it and a number of other things, and he may have even asked for it. But to get to everything else, I mean, Baltimore looked at what all they had to look at. They had choices. They already knew that Hendrickson was there. They made the deal. They gave their two first rounds. I mean, they wanted them that bad. Dallas tried like heck, but they stood tall and said, you know what, we're not going to do all of that. So they go and make the trade, or at least they say it. And we do realize it was the tampering period. And we do realize that technically they didn't make the trade, but you did, because what Baltimore understood was once they made it, they were going to be trapped into it and time was elapsing. And it just is very difficult for me to believe that they didn't know that Hendrickson was interested. They didn't know that whether Cincinnati, or it's hard for me to believe that Cincinnati didn't say anything to them about Hendrickson being offered. And hey, by the way, his agent may have said, listen, it's not even going to cost you any draft picks at all. Let's try to figure this out. Let's back up into a corner. And apparently with this GM with Baltimore, this isn't the first time he's done something like that, just not at this particular level. But it's hard to believe all those things happen. And then, he's on recovery and he's 2 months out of surgery. So you made that offer with 2 first-round picks 2 months out of surgery. My question is, what really changed from the time he's out of surgery up until when you denied the draft? It's very hard for me to believe that Baltimore either wasn't tipped off that somebody else was interested. That's what I'm saying. I think the injury was the impetus as the reason they backed out, but not the reason. It was the impetus, and it's something that they could lean on. But I just don't think it was really in good taste that they backed out of that at the last minute, then conveniently saying that it was the injury when really, in my mind, it was the 2 first-round picks, and they just woke the heck up.
Yep.
That's what I have to say about it.
We can get these picks back? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on it, G?
There's a part of me is thinking that I definitely think the picks are a part of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Max Crosby himself. Just the way you have to handle your business in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not be surprised if ultimately, Baltimore just didn't want to deal with him.
You have to give us more on that. What did Max do to make you think? Because I didn't see where there was any impropriety on his part.
Well, let me see. Let me see if I can find the article again. It was a quick hit look at it, and then I'll come back.
Okay, so I have some thoughts in terms of Cincinnati getting in bed with a division partner or division opponent, excuse me. Like, seriously, you trade your best defensive guy to one of your main divisional foes, somebody who really standing in your way of winning that division. No way. That's just the unwritten rule. You don't trade somebody of that magnitude within the division. Typically, you're not trading within your division if you can help it. I mean, so I'm a little bit dumbfounded by the fact that happened, but more is going to come out on this because it doesn't have a good feel to it. It just doesn't have a good feel to it at all. And now Max Crosby is, posting on social media that he's happy to be back and this is where he's going to be. And I'm like, a few weeks ago, you didn't want to be there. And then at the end of the season, you were upset because they didn't let you play, though you were injured because you just wanted to be out there. So I'm not sure where the truth lies here, and we may never know what really happened. But I will say that the Ravens are being attached to some shady business because there was also a story today about our guy from Green Bay, Jair Alexander, in that Eagles trade where they basically Jair Alexander had to pay the Eagles back the monies because Baltimore knew that he had no, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Steph, on the details, Baltimore knew he had no intentions of playing. So something's up with Baltimore and how they're doing business. To me, if you got two incidents of Baltimore doing some shady business with teams, my fingers are pointing at Baltimore. Gee, did you come across anything yet?
Yeah, I came across an article saying that with Crosby, there had been like speculation of a trade for a while, like there was a rocky relationship between him and the Raiders. And it had been going on for a while. So that's what I was reading. So I was like, I'm wondering if some of that has played into it in terms of how he has relationships with his teams.
I don't think he had enough time to have a rocky relationship with Baltimore. And he was there for a hot minute, man. But we never know. We never know. Right. I mean, he's one of my favorite dudes. He seemed like a good dude to me. One of my favorite players. I like his personality. But we don't know the business of it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's definitely a business. So we don't know what went on. And we may never know. But anyway, so that's that. And what about our boy Kyler Murray? We had a pretty in-depth discussion on him, landed in Minnesota today. I think J.J. McCarthy's job is gone. What do you guys think?
It depends on which Kyler Murray. It depends on which Kyler shows up.
Yeah, right. All those things. I think that this guy, the good news about him is he's not afraid of much, and he didn't have much around him. Now he's got, if not one of the top wideouts in the NFL, and a great tight end, and the O-line and all is all pretty solid when everybody is together. But he's a guy that's going to make some plays. He doesn't doubt himself. It's just whether he plays the football that he should really play within the system where you're thinking well beyond yourself. If you're thinking about you making the play all the time, the offense isn't going to get done what it needs to get done. And that doesn't mean I want to, put him in a harness or anything, because I don't. I just want this to be a much smarter Kyler Murray to come in this particular situation and to see how much he's matured. And Because sometimes he would play great and other times a fish out of water. Hopefully what Minnesota does, and I think he's got the right type of coach that can help him to be a fish in the water.
All right, thanks, big dude. Hey, G, you're about to leave us.
Yeah, I need to bounce, but I can give you my quick summary for Tampa Bay and Atlanta if you want.
All right, so we still got we got Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and Atlanta. If you want to do those.
Oh yeah, I can give you a quick hit for all three of them.
Sure.
So with New Orleans, what I'm seeing is that they have been strong on defense and so far in free agency. So I wouldn't be surprised if they really focus on offense, which looking at their strengths and weaknesses, offense is definitely a place, particularly at the run, they need to focus on. Well, same thing with run defense, but definitely with run on offense, they need to focus on. Atlanta, they've been really active in free agency. So I see that they got their tight end. So or their tight end, yeah. But so they may actually switch to running back and offensive line. I'm thinking at this point, maybe some defensive line, but definitely I can see them really showing up the running back and the offensive line in the draft. And then finally, I'm thinking that Tampa Bay, if I remember correctly, I didn't see a boatload of movement with them, but tight end and linebacker, actually, that's where they were in free agency. So they haven't really done a whole lot. So they just need everything, to be quite honest.
I had the same assessment on them, so I thought it was just me.
Full Tampa Bay. Creamsicle, they just can't get it right. Anyway, bro, let me bounce, man.
All right.
Good seeing y'all.
All right, G. Take care, man.
All right, big dude. Let's hop into the Falcons. So the Falcons, their season, the seasons were interesting for all these teams in this division. I mean, again, they were all jumbled up with these under 500 records. Atlanta is an interesting case to me because they really looked good for a while there. I mean, they had big wins over Buffalo and the Rams, and Buffalo was that Monday night game in front of a national audience. People were starting to think that Atlanta might be real. I knew better, but I think people, they did look impressive, but my boys are prone to lay eggs every now and then, so I didn't read a whole lot into it. But they finished the season really strong. They won their final 4 games, which made it surprising when they fired Raheem Morris. I mean, the players loved him, you could tell, and some players even came out and made statements towards the end before the firing happened that they wanted him to return as their coach, that they were behind him. They certainly played hard for him when they didn't have a whole lot to play for at the end. And surprisingly, they fired the GM, Terry Fontenot. And I say surprisingly because if you think about his draft class last year, especially on the defensive side, he had a heck of a draft class. And their defense was much better, and I think they're only going to get better. And his guys that he drafted in that 2025 draft are going to be the foundation for what I think is going to be a really, really good defense, if not great defense moving forward. So ultimately, going back to Raheem Morris, he has a history, and I don't know if you know this big dude, of some mismanagement of games. He's left games with timeouts on the table. If you remember the Washington playoff game last year, he didn't manage the clock very well at the end there, and they had a chance to kind of win that game. So I guess he has a history of some game mismanagement, and a lot of common belief is that that's what actually cost him. But in any case, they're moving on to Kevin Stefanski. But there were some positives, I think, in Atlanta this year. I mean, we saw Kyle Pitts finally return. The real Kyle Pitts appeared last season, finally. Many fantasy owners were happy, but I had given up on him as a fantasy owner myself. But Kyle Pitts is back, which is awesome to see. So that was a bright spot. But their QB inconsistency, that remained a major issue. Now they have Tua Tagovailoa. What Tua are we going to get? Does he have anything left? Stefanski's supposed to be this offensive guru. Is he going to take Tua to this next level? Because, I mean, Tua can certainly play when he's protected, but the key is, can you protect him? And is he going to protect himself? So looking at Atlanta, man, going into next season, I mean, they have 19 free agents. They have a little bit of cap space. I'm sure they can free up some more, but they certainly need another offensive weapon. Even though they are good on offense, I think they need another outside weapon. They did re-sign, or I'm sorry, they franchised Kyle Pitts. Of course, they still have Drake London, but I know they picked up Olamide. I don't remember Olamide's last name from the Bears. And I thought they picked up Zacchaeus, yes. And they picked up another slot receiver, I believe. So they may not need to focus on the receiver as much as I originally thought they needed to. And I think they maybe need one or two more pieces on defense because they did lose a couple of defensive players. I know their DB went to Buffalo, and I think they lost a defensive tackle, if I'm not mistaken. But their needs are defensive line, wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker, and edge. They don't have any first-round picks. They're another team that doesn't have any first-round picks, so this gets a little bit tricky. I certainly think they're probably going to be a little bit more active in free agency. But in that second round, they do have the 48th pick. Big dude, how do you think Atlanta should proceed with their draft going into that second round? Because there is value in those second-round picks if you're strategic enough, and I think they can still get a really good player at that position. What do you think Atlanta should do, and what should they focus on?
I think Atlanta should focus on some defense. I think the next generation of linebackers and some corners, some people that are solid corners and linebackers that can play together. You know, some people may not be rated as high as other folks. I think that's one thing about the 48th pick and even the 77th pick. You're going to get some solid football players out of that. You may not get the highest rated, but sometimes you get those players in those particular positions that are glad to get chosen, and they fit right in the defensive scheme. So you have those particular people that are there. They just picked up Christian Harris, who is also a linebacker. You know that he was third round. He played for the Texans. So we'll see what he does. And I would say also it wouldn't be a bad idea to get another wideout, even though they do have Olamide Zacchaeus and they have Jahan Dotson. It wouldn't be bad to get that wide receiver that, again, no one else is willing to take a chance on to be that fourth receiver. I think that's going to be important. It's going to be just as important, I think, to get Atlanta over the hump. They always have great individual players, but I always wonder what Atlanta is like in their individual depth. So they really are going to have to figure out this quarterback situation, though, with Penix Jr. and with Tua, because neither one can. They both have a problem standing up, and I think that Atlanta's offensive line, though, as the year went on, had gotten better, and I don't know if they're quite where they want them to be, but they're pretty close. I think that they can feel good about maybe, it doesn't have another old lineman on there as a need, but I think it's always good to have another left tackle or someone that's willing to play swing tackle on either side. And then, of course, you have the list of people that'll be right around 48th, 48th and 77. And I think you also can complement a linebacker with another edge rusher. So I think they're in pretty good shape. The interior D-line is not bad, but I think the next generation of linebackers is going to be important for the Falcons.
Yeah, for me, and I forgot too that Atlanta also lost Tyler Algier, their running back. So in addition to the defensive losses, they also lost Algiers in free agency. But I think that Atlanta, even though they had a really great draft on defense last year, I think they should continue along that route and focus on the defense. I really like the defensive lineman from Ohio State, Caden McDonald. He should be available in that second round at that spot. If they can't get him, I would say try to go with another edge rusher. and I have 3 specific gentlemen in mind. Joshua Josephs from Tennessee, one of your boys, Big Steph, Big Dude, excuse me, Danny Dennis Sutton, and Zion Young, which I've mentioned before, out of Mizzou. He's out of those 3, he's the lowest rated one, but I really like his size and length and his tenacity to the ball. No disrespect to Joshua Josephs and Dennis Sutton, but I really like Zion Young, and maybe it's just a little biased because I saw Zion so much during the year. But I think they can't go wrong with either of those 3 if they decide to go edge rusher. So I think those are the 4 players that they really should have on their radar. I know they lost a cornerback in D. Alfred, who was legitimate cornerback, but I would say try to fill their cornerback, and if they feel like they need an additional linebacker to replace Christian Harris, try to do that in free agency. Especially where their defense is now, I don't think you need to hit a home run with cornerback. I think you'll be really good in the middle and up front, which will protect your cornerbacks a little bit. And you could even consider drafting one, which I didn't really think about, but it is a rather deep draft at cornerback, and there's a lot of sleepers that I think might be available. So if I'm Atlanta, I think I would focus on that defense. I think they're off. I mean, as long as you have a great running back like Bijan Robinson, your offense is going to be all right. And I think you touched on a big piece of what their offensive issue will be, Big Dude. Which quarterback is going to stand up and which one's going to take that next step? Let's look at, we already did Carolina. Let's flip into New Orleans, Big Dude. Another interesting team in that division. Now, they were the last place team, which I don't know how much that says in that division. It's separated by a couple games. But Carolina also another team with a first-year coach and quarterback problems. So it was another difficult season for them. That instability at the QB is crazy. You're talking Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shaw. Neither one of them's going to jump off the screen for, our regular fans here. I know we watch a lot of college ball, so we're familiar with Spencer Rattler. Tyler Shaw, not as much, but certainly familiar with him. So they had really that back and forth all year before Kellen Moore made the decision to go with Tyler Shaw at the end of the year, which they ended up winning 4 of their last 5 games. So it looks like he might be the guy going into next year, and they're going to try to carry that momentum into next year. I think a disappointment for them, and here we are with the running back situation again. Alvin Kamara, though he suffered a knee injury late in the season, he wasn't really performing at the level that we're accustomed to seeing him perform prior to that injury. So he had a relatively quiet season, so it'll be interesting to see if he comes back. I don't hear any, and I say come back, I mean come back as himself. He'll certainly be back with the team. But, we're used to him playing at a super high level, and he does still have some juice left in him. So I'm expecting him to have a bounce back year. Chris Olave, surprisingly, Big Dude, did you know that this was the best season of his career?
Well, it took him that long, huh?
Because it didn't seem like Chris Olave. I mean, I felt like he had fallen by the wayside with that class of receivers. Yeah. I didn't even think about him anymore. I know they were talking about my boys trying to pick him up, and I was like, for what? So, but apparently he had a career year, so that's great news for them. So Kellen Moore may have found some answers on offense. If you can get Alvin Kamara to have a bounce back year, if Show's the real deal, then the offense is cooking with a little something. So they did end the year with some momentum, but offensively, their rankings were really low. And, maybe their lack of success earlier in the year impacted this a big deal, but they were 23rd overall on offense, 28th in rushing, and a lot of that had to do with the performance of Kamara and his injury. And they gave up a lot of sacks, the 8th most sacks in the league. So you need to do something about that. And defensively, they were top 10 in total yardage, so pretty solid. 9th against the pass, 14th against rushing, 11th in sacks. So the defense held its own, and, they still have a good defensive nucleus. So looking at them going into 2026, they do have some cap space. They're on the lower end, but they have some cap space. 11 free agents they need to take a look at. The big thing for them is probably to strengthen that offense a little bit more and add some depth to the defense because, like I just said, the defense was a top 10 defense, so not too many weaknesses there. And looking at their needs, they need an edge rusher, wide receiver, a cornerback, an offensive lineman, and a defensive lineman. And they have a tremendous pick at number 8. Big dude, what do you have the Saints doing?
Well, it looks like the Saints are, first of all, I think they did well in, the free agency. I like the fact that, and I was going to ask you what happened. It seems like that they filtered and they got one of your guys, David Edwards, an outstanding player from the Bills, the guard.
I didn't even realize that. When did they pick him up? That one got by me.
That one came up, was it late the other day? Yeah, so today is Thursday, so I want to say late Tuesday they came up.
Yeah, that one got by me. That one definitely got by me.
So that's a real, all the stuff that you mentioned, them being exposed with the giving up all, all those sacks and being ranked very low. I think that was probably the smartest signing out of all beside ETN. I think people overlooked that one. I got by a lot of people because I don't think people said much. I'm like, they got David. Okay. But he wanted to come back. Then you got ETN that they're saying is coming home. I guess he's from that area. So good for him.
Louisiana boy. Yep.
Right. And he's 25 years old, and he's got a whole lot to him. His his rookie year was really tough. He had that Liz Frank situation where he missed most of his first year. So that didn't work out good for him. But since then, he's been crystal clear. And then they brought back somebody they used to have that was with Atlanta, is Caden Ellis, who's probably 29 years old and will probably be wearing the green dot for them on defense. So getting someone back, I'm sure that's familiar with what's going on, coming from another team and coming here. I think that's what's, definitely a chance to get started. And I think they brought in the D tackle, let's see, John Ridgway, the third. He's a D tackle. They signed him, and they're looking for some big things with him. And then they also brought in the other big one that I didn't know about, and I was wondering where he's at. In fact, I haven't really heard from him. Maybe I just didn't keep up as much. But I think that the other tremendous signing they got was Noah Fant. Very big signing for
huge. And I saw that. Yeah, I did catch that. Really big signing.
Yeah. So when I look at their, what's going on second round, I'd like the Saints to get another running back. I like running back for them. Although it doesn't say they're going to need it, because I think they're going to be able to get their pick for edge rusher. So maybe I would say get the defense together. I would say you probably should prioritize with an edge rusher first. But somewhere in there, you have to have another running back, somebody that has slipped and doesn't look like they've been overlooked by folks. And I think you need to get another person, and you need to take some carries off of ETN. Now, the question is going to be is what's going to happen with Kamara now that he's, 30 years old. He's in his 9th year, 10th year. This is going to be big for him. In fact, you look at, he doesn't have the speed he has, and he's been injured. Him and ETN, they're like the exact same size. They're 5'11", 215 pounds. I didn't realize he was that big, So those guys all got good size at backs, and kind of like G was saying, I like the aspect of being able to pass protect as well as getting those tough yards and replace with productions. So far, ETN is more of a production type person, where Kamara, he doesn't have that game-breaking ability as much anymore, but is smart enough to play. So it'll be important to see what they do there. But I would say that very first pick, they should, if any of those guys from Ohio State falls to them, I would say that they should get somebody like Arvell Reese if Arvell Reese is available. Something tells me Arvell Reese is going to be available at 8th. And if Arvell Reese is available at the 8th pick, I think you ought to look at Arvell Reese on the edge. 2 edge people to begin with, then a running back.
Yeah, for me, for New Orleans, it's clear cut. Wide receiver, get themselves another wide receiver. If Tate's available, which I don't think he will be, I say go with him. But you should be able to get Malachi. What is it? Makai Lemon? It's Makai
Yeah.
Lemon, right? They
Yeah,
should be able to get. They should be able to get Makai Lemon, who, by the way, apparently they had their pro day today at USC, and he ran a 4.445 for anyone interested in that speed, which we know isn't a definitive indicator of success, but it's good. It's another good variable to attach to him. So his and people are fickle, so his draft value may rise and he may not be there, but I think that one of those two receivers will be there, and I think that's where they should go. And we'll find out if Tyler Schultz for real, because he won't be short of weapons. So we'll definitely see if he's for real. Like I said, Lynn, you brought up a good point. I had forgotten that they had gotten ETN. So if Kamara is just 3/4 of himself with the young, fresh Etienne, New Orleans could really be in some business. The addition of Noah Fant, I don't see any weaknesses on their offense right now, other than if the quarterback doesn't work out, and hopefully they can get an offensive lineman to fill in their gap there. But New Orleans is a very, very intriguing team looking at this division going into the next year. I do not think that their record will be anything close to what it was this past year. So that'll be fun watching this division and see who comes out of there yet again. Let's move into our last team here, Tampa Bay. The Bucks. I can't figure this team out, big dude, at all. They scare you when you look at their roster, but it seems like as Baker Mayfield goes is how they go. And he was banged up this year a lot. He was rushed a lot. I believe he was sacked something like 36 times this year. So that's something that they need to figure out, and offensive line is one of their needs. But Tampa Bay opened the season red hot, 5-1. But if you remember their season, big dude, 4 of those 5 games were won in the final minutes. And so the beginning of their season was really misleading. And they beat Houston, Seattle, and San Francisco, all playoff teams, certainly the Super Bowl champs. So you're looking at the beginning of this season thinking Tampa Bay is the real deal. But then when you win like that, that tends to catch up with you. They lost 6 of their 9 losses were by 1 score. So, that always averages out. You can't keep making the great escape week after week throughout a 17-week season and thinking that you're going to be able to get by like that. So it caught up with them. But it shows you how thin their margin was for error. And that ended up really being what cost them their season, teetering on the line too much, snatching defeat from the jaws of a win all the time with them. So Mayfield missed some time. Evans missed significant time most of the season. And certainly Evans is now in San Francisco, so that's a weapon that they lost. One great takeaway was the emergence of their wide receiver, Ibuka. He had a really good year. Little slow towards the end. He had some injuries, a little bit banged up towards the end, but that's still, the future looks bright for him, even though it may have ended a little bit disappointing, and really overall disappointing on both sides of the ball for Tampa Bay. And like G said before, he had to leave us. They need help everywhere. Their offense total ranking 27th. They were passed 26th against the pass, 19th against the rush. I'm sorry, that's offensive numbers. 27th total offense, 26th in passing yards, 19th in rushing yards. Defense wasn't much better. 20th against the rush, 29th in sacks, 28th in fumbles forced. Just not good across the board. And on paper, I thought they looked much better than this. When you look at Tampa Bay, big dude, where do you even begin with them? They need help on both sides of the ball. So I don't even know what you prioritize. They have a decent pick, but what do? You're picking the best available player, going with that. You're targeting a position. What's your approach for Tampa Bay?
Well, just to start again quickly, their free agency, they did well. We to take a look at the big pick they got from Detroit, Alex Anzalone, I think is great. Coming to him, he'll have the green dot on. He's in his 10th year. Then you have Al-Quadin Muhammad, a really good edge rusher. has about 8 years. And they pair with Anthony Nelson, who has been the lone person, I think, when you look at what's going on statistically with Anthony Nelson, he has been the one person keeping them in the game, able to play the run, able to rush the passer and do a number of other things at that defensive end and play discipline. Now, you mentioned on offense, they got Kenneth Gainwell, although I think this is what is going to be needed in the, like I said, looking at the first round, the 15th pick, I would look at either another running back or another receiver. Obviously, receiver, it really has to, and this is where some of the other folks beside Makai Lemon and those other folks come in. So I think they have pretty much what they need on defense that they brought in, but you could always use another edge rusher because you want to kind of look at things, especially with Ty Bowles. I'm sure he works on a rotation. So he has a rotation, attacking style defense. And I think all the way through, they do need help on both sides of the ball. And I think having a safety that is also the quarterback of the secondary to help out the offense. I'm not sure if you can make the leap in the offense that you really need to make once you lose a person like Mike Evans. But I think that's where we're at with Tampa Bay. Defense, wideouts, probably another generation of linebackers because you got a 29 and a 30-year-old. This will probably be their 1 year that they play and do what they have to do to play for another contract. So I think they're going to have to come aggressive. If they can't get a wideout at 15, I would say look at a linebacker.
Yeah, I really like what they've done in free agency heading into the draft. I love Alex Anzalone. I love him as a linebacker pickup. So I think that certainly helps on defense. He's very active, live wire, a lot of energy. So I think that'll bring some new energy to that defense. I think Gainwell's a great pickup because Rachaad White got away from them earlier today, I believe it was. So that's a great fill on that end. Gainwell's got a lot left. He had a good year for the Steelers last year. And I like a Sean Robinson, the defensive tackle that they picked up. So I think they made a couple of good defensive selections. So I'm going to actually, believe it or not, a little bit of a trend from what I've been doing up to this point, lean towards the offensive end. And I'm going to think offensive linemen for them. And at 15, they should be able to get one of the higher ranked offensive linemen. They're going to be in that Caden Proctor territory again, Caleb Lomu from Utah. Even if you get into the kid from Georgia, Monroe Fielding, there's quite a few good offensive linemen still left. But I keep going back to Kenyon Sadiq. They do need a tight end. I like that tight end / wide receiver label I gave him. I wouldn't be mad if he was available. I don't think he's going to be available at that pick, but if he was available, I think I'd snatch him up. I really do, because I think he's going to be a generational guy. And I was a little bit surprised at their lack of offense and how low they ranked on offense. He would give them a nice jolt. And I know a big part of that was Evans was hurt most of the year. At that same time, Ibuka was banged up. Mayfield seemed like every time he played, he was banged up. So I know they weren't at full strength and that hurt them. But this would be a great get because while you picked up some great free agents, I think that this could only accentuate what you've done in the offseason thus far. So I think with that pick, it's a great position to be in. I mentioned originally, perhaps their strategy should be to get the highest ranked player and go there because they need so much. But I think if he's there, I'd go Kenyon Sadiq. So that's my take on Tampa. Anything else on free agency before we wrap up, big dude? A lot happened. Anything else really stand out for you? Any bad moves? What good moves did you see? Things that you really liked, and it could be any team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Chicago and Detroit, they did pretty good. Those are, when you look at the divisions, the Giants are in solid shape. From what I understand, Harborough has brought some of his players over from there and from other places. The Eagles, they had a lot. They entertained a whole lot of different things that are going on. I think the Eagles actually did right by kind of holding their water, not pulling the whole thing with the A.J. Brown thing. I didn't quite understand it at first. The fans weren't happy because it didn't seem like the Eagles would do much, but it just sounds like there was a lot of discussions and people trying to get the Eagles off of their game a little bit. And also, of course, with Jalen Carter, people were trying very hard, especially some of the teams out west, I understand, really were saying, hey, how can we get Jalen Carter? You sure we can't get a second round? So the Eagles stood very tall on that kind of thing. They made the signing they had to make early. I think it was good that they signed Jordan Davis, and that was a good thing because it could put pressure on other folks. But like I said earlier to G, and I wasn't trying to be funny, I really want to see what this Jalen Phillips post Jalen Carter is going to be. I want to see how that works because he played well, but he played with a lot of autonomy, a lot of different things he didn't have to worry about because he knew Jalen Carter, even though it just wasn't the best year that Carter that needed to have. Don't want to talk about the Eagles too much, but just in that situation, because it was such a big signing, I'm not so sure that the Eagles did a bad thing by not signing him for that much and then guaranteeing him $80 million. The one thing I'm not sure of, the last thing is, I just was not sure about this contract that, what's his name? That Daniel Jones got, the 2-year, $88 million contract, after he had an Achilles that was a torn Achilles. Now, this is what gets me about the injuries. People talk about the injuries and what people do. A torn Achilles, and you talk about certain injuries that are difficult to come back from. That's one of the biggest ones. And that type of investment means either you think he's going to be all right, but he's going to be all right, and you don't know that. So I say the NFL, I think they really need to take a look because of what happened with the Ravens, and you and other people may not agree. I think they may need to cut that down in terms of, where the league starts at, but that tampering period probably by, I would say, maybe 6 hours, they need to cut that time back. So there's less monkey business or less of a chance, and you used the word impropriety tonight. That sounded more like G, but you used it. Less of a chance for impropriety if you close that window.
Yeah, I think for me, just surprised at some of the moves. Some of them were pretty predictable. Before I get to that too, though, NFL fans have to chill out. Fans are so antsy. My team didn't make any moves. You know how much offseason we still have left? Just because free agency started doesn't mean all the moves have to be made this week. So chill out a little bit. Teams have their strategy. Let your GMs and the rest of your coaching team, staff, whoever, let them do their jobs. You still have the draft coming up. I'm sure every team has a plan. So fans, chill out first and foremost. I like Kyler Murray going to Minnesota. I think it's a new leash on his career potentially. I'm rooting for him and expecting him to do big things there. Tua, same thing. I'm rooting for him, but I honestly don't know how that's going to turn out. I worry about him physically just because of the injuries that he's had. But the other moves pretty solid. We talked about the Max Crosby situation earlier. I no longer trust the Baltimore Ravens. I wouldn't even negotiate with them on anything. And I'm just really excited to see what comes next. I have my alerts on and try to keep up as much as possible. But I have to be quite honest with you. This has been hard to keep up with. It has been super hard to keep up with. And I don't really remember a free agency period with this much activity involving big name players. Because you see activity, but usually it's your journeyman and some obscure names. We're seeing big time impactful players switch franchises. And for somebody, it's going to make a difference in them in terms of chasing that ring. And I think that's a good note to end on. Please make sure that you continue to like, follow, subscribe, hang with us, and, continue to support us. And we're going to continue our journey on our next episode, we are going to do the NFC West, and we are going to wrap up the NFC, and we're going to start with the AFC and come on down the stretch. And we're going to switch it up a little bit, give us some more time to talk about some of the draft prospects in a little bit more detail. So we'll have some time to do that after we finish each of our divisions between that time and the draft. So looking forward to that. Hope we'll get back on a regular episode schedule next week. Oh, also, March Madness is coming up, everyone. We are going to try to get a March Madness episode in, perhaps surrounding Selection Sunday. So stay tuned for that. No promises, but we're going to try to get something together for that. So until next time, thank you for supporting. See you later.